Get out of your comfort zone, and that's where true innovation will occur.
This is The Entrepreneur Way with Neil Ball. Unlocking the secrets of successful entrepreneurs 7 days a week. Subscribe to our podcast and follow us on Twitter at Neil D. Ball. Napoleon Hill said the power of the mastermind is the driving force. To discover how you can unlock the potential in your business using the power of a mastermind, go to mastermindunlimited.com. And now, here is your host, Neil Ball.
Hello, it's Neil Ball here. Thank you so much for joining me today on The Entrepreneur Way. The Entrepreneur Way is about the entrepreneur's journey, the vision, the mindset, the commitment, the sacrifice, failures and successes. I am so excited to bring you our special guest today, Tania de Jong. But before I introduce you to her, I have a quote for you from Bruce Norman. If you choose the wrong questions and you proceed, you still get a result, but it's not interesting. The Entrepreneur Way asks the questions so we all get the insight, inspiration and ideas to apply in our businesses. Tania, welcome to the show. Are you ready to share your version of the Entrepreneur Way with us?
Definitely, Neil.
Thank you for coming on the show, Tania. Tania de Jong AM is an acclaimed Australian soprano, award-winning social entrepreneur, creative innovation catalyst, an inclusionista, global speaker and spiritual journey woman. She founded Creative Universe, Creativity Australia, Music Theatre Australia, Pot-Pourri and The Song Room, and works with diverse communities through Creativity Australia's With One Voice choir social inclusion programs. Tania speaks around the world at conferences and special events on entrepreneurship, creativity, disruption, innovation, social inclusion and leadership, and delivers innovation capability workshops for organisations and teams. Tania also performs internationally as a soloist with her group Pot-Pourri, releasing 7 CDs. She is founder and executive producer of Creative Innovation Global. Tania's TED Talk, How Singing Together Changes the Brain, has sparked international interest. In 2015, Tania released her solo CD, Heaven on Earth. She has recently founded a co-working space called Dimension 5 in Melbourne to drive social innovation and collaboration. Tania's mission is to change the world one voice at a time. Tania, can you provide us with some more insight into your business and personal life to allow us to get to know more about what you do and who you are?
Yeah, sure. So my background, I'm a soprano. Yes, I do sing. And a social entrepreneur. I'm passionate about creativity and innovation. So all of this started over 25 years ago with my group Pot-Pourri, which is a singing group that has performed all over the world in 40 countries, released 7 CDs. I then set up an events and entertainment company called MTA Entertainment and Events. And I should say all these companies still exist. So I'm actually what's called, apparently I only just found out this definition, a portfolio entrepreneur as opposed to a serial entrepreneur. So I'm a portfolio entrepreneur because a lot of the enterprises that I started are still in my portfolio. So then after MTA Events and Entertainment, which books incredible performers and groups for events and conferences and concerts and councils and others all over the world, I then set up my first charity, which is called The Song Room, which has reached hundreds of thousands of disadvantaged children and schools with arts programs which have enabled them to improve their self-esteem and educational outcomes, among many other wonderful successes. Then in 2008, I set up my second charity, Creativity Australia, which I'm sure we're going to talk about during this interview, but which brings together people like you and I, more fortunate people, doctors, lawyers, teachers, CEOs, students, with people who are less fortunate, migrants, job seekers, people with depression and disabilities, in what are called the With One Voice choirs. And through the choirs, people experience the neuroscience of singing and connect to one another, to help one another through a very innovative wish list program. So we help people to connect to whatever they need in life, and it's a wonderful social inclusion and community wellbeing program. I then set up Creative Innovation Global, which is a global world-class innovation conference which is focused on managing the challenges of disruption and helping people to prepare and reinvent their future for themselves, but especially for their organisations. And we've had many great successes with that conference. In addition to that, I do a lot of keynote speaking on topics like entrepreneurship, leadership, innovation, diversity, social inclusion, creativity and creative thinking, and many other things. And I also work with top teams from both large businesses, government departments, and also work quite a lot with emerging entrepreneurs. And then my latest venture is a new co-working space, which I've just set up in partnership with a global NASDAQ-listed company called Dimension Data. And we've set up this new co-working space, which is going to be launching very shortly, called Dimension 5. And that's designed to be a collaborative incubator, hub, accelerator, where people can have what I like to call positive human collisions, which I'm sure we'll discuss during the interview.
Mm-hmm. Wow. That's a portfolio,
yeah, and then I sing for my supper, the rest of the time. I sing. So I also do a lot of singing and earn my living singing all over the world as well as speaking.
Wow. What a portfolio that is.
Oh, and I just released my first CD called Heaven on Earth.
How on earth do you have enough time to do all of that? That's amazing.
I have insomnia.
You haven't.
So I don't sleep very often, and I'm highly productive in my waking hours.
Yeah. And what do you enjoy most about what you do?
Look, I do think, the diversity of what I do is fascinating. I connect with some very, very interesting and talented people. I suppose what I really enjoy most is actually singing. I love singing. It's wonderful. The neuroscience of singing means that when you sing, and particularly when you sing with other people, you release endorphins through the right temporal lobe of your brain that make you feel smarter, healthier, happier, more creative. And your neural pathways literally connect in you in different ways. So when you're singing, you're increasing your neural plasticity, you're improving your memory, language and concentration, and you're connecting with people in new and different ways. So singing is like a super wonder drug. So that's what I enjoy the absolute most of what I do.
Mm-hmm. And what is it that drives you, Tania?
I suppose what drives me is a desire to make a difference. I feel like I've been given an enormous amount of, talents, and I also, though, have an enormous sense of gratitude because I don't really take anything for granted. My grandparents, both sides of the family, were very lucky to survive the Holocaust. My parents are Holocaust survivors. And, my grandfather was a very famous sculptor in Vienna and then in Asia and then in Australia, and my grandmother invented the first foldable umbrella. And their escape from Europe was nothing short of miraculous. And the same on my father's side, his family's escape from, the jaws of the Nazis in Holland was also incredible. Most, large parts of both my mother's and father's family perished in the Holocaust. And so I guess that's what drives me. It's like, we're only here for a short time. So let's live life to the fullest, and and it is like heaven on earth. It's a great gift to be alive.
Mm-hmm. And is that what drives you to do all your charity work and what that you do?
Yeah, that would certainly be a big driver for me because I do a lot of work with migrants and people whose voices have been silenced in some way or another, and when my parents and grandparents came to Australia and so on. They'd lost everything that they'd built in their whole life. So I really relate to people who have that story. And actually, more and more people are migrants. There's more and more refugees in the world today than ever before. Mm-hmm. Wanderers, people who are looking for somewhere that they can call home. And, of course, I believe that home is where the heart is. So you've just got to find that sense of meaning and purpose, and then you can create, I guess, a home and a family around you. And a lot of the charity work that I do with our With One Voice choirs, for many of the people in those choirs, our weekly choir sessions are like their home, their haven, a refuge, a place where, you know, they may not have a family who's with them, or they may have lost members of their family, and they may be very lonely and isolated. And I think that probably the greatest challenge of our era is loneliness and the depression that accompanies that. So, yeah, I'm very passionate about that.
Could you give us some kind of example of the type of work that's been done with the charities that you support?
Yeah, so with Creativity Australia, which is, you know, my second charity with the With One Voice program, we bring together diverse people. So rather than bringing together just disadvantaged people and putting them in a choir together, through our wish list program, people can make wishes to one another, and the wishes are read out each week at the choirs. And it might be, you know, that someone needs help with a resume, getting a job, finding a friend, learning how to use the internet, or learning how to speak English, or finding someone to walk to the station with them, or whatever it happens to be. And as the wishes get read out instantaneously, people start to put up their hands and start making other people's wishes come true. So, for example, just recently, there was a lady whose sister was massacred in front of her eyes in Cameroon, and she made a wish to get a job, and we helped her get her first job in Australia. She'd been discriminated against for a long time because, you know, when people come to a new land, there often is a lot of discrimination. So we helped her. We recently helped a girl with cerebral palsy who'd been looking for a job for 6 years, and she got a job. We helped, one of our board members helped her with a resume. She then got a job, but then she lost it within 6 to 8 weeks because, you know, most people don't actually take enough time to understand people with a disability, or, you know, who have a disadvantage. But so then she came back to choir and she was incredibly upset, and she made another wish to find another job, and that night there happened to be someone that I'd invited along who was looking for someone, and this girl thought that she was going to be offered a voluntary role, and to her great rapture, she was offered a paying role, and now she's held that job for over a year, which is the longest that this girl, who's I think 29, has ever held a job in her life. And she loves going to work. Her boss loves her. And it just goes to show the enormous value of, you know, when you come together and people can connect in this way, they find networks that they would never have imagined possible. And mostly disadvantaged people who are in a particular part of the community don't get to break out of their box. So this is about breaking out of the box, giving people a chance to walk across the bridge to another part of the world. And it's also a chance for people who live in the more fortunate part of our society to look across that bridge, sit next to people who are very disadvantaged and think, well, I could be that person. So I could be the person with cerebral palsy. I could be, you know, the lady who came from Cameroon whose sister was massacred and who's now bringing up her own 2 children, her sister's child. We could all swap places at any moment with someone less fortunate. And once you start to realise that, this most incredible sense of, well, I'm so lucky for everything that I have. And interestingly enough, with a lot of the disadvantaged people that we work with as well, once their wishes are granted, they then start to grant the wishes of those who are even less fortunate than them. So it becomes like this circle of reciprocity that occurs on a weekly basis. You know, it's magical. It's transformational. I get emails, you know, every few days from people whose lives are literally being transformed.
Yeah. And how much do you think your ability to do what you do has been affected by being an entrepreneur in terms of helping these people?
I think everything has been about, you know, being an entrepreneur. If I wasn't an entrepreneur, I would never believe that something was possible to begin with, because, you know, all of the enterprises that I've created, I think 7 or 8 now, or probably more actually, because I also had childhood. I was an entrepreneur from, you know, 5 years old. I can tell you about that later if you like. Yeah. But, you know, I've always been a person that has not set any boundaries in terms of what is possible. You know, like I think if you dream it and work, and just start it. I just believe in starting too, so I never really analyse anything too much. Mm-hmm. So basically what happens is I start something and go, oh my God, I forgot how hard this was. And, you're too far involved in something and you can't go back, and you've got another baby. I don't have kids of my own, but, I've got like all these enterprises that are like my babies. And I just start, I don't see the barriers, I guess. And I see a lot of other people who see a lot of barriers and obstacles before they'll even contemplate starting something.
So when you've got 7 or 8 things on the go here, from what I've counted up to now.
Yeah.
How do you relax when you're not working in your business?
Well, I actually do find singing really relaxing. So that's a great joy and very meditative. You're very much in the moment. So I find that relaxing. I've got my dog sitting on my lap at the moment, and taking my dog for walks is a great therapy, and patting the dog, swimming, yoga, going to the ocean, walking in nature, reading great novels, listening to beautiful music. Those are the sort of things, I guess, that help me relax. And I have a wonderful partner who, tries to get me to switch off. But, it's quite difficult, as you know from interviewing entrepreneurs, we're pretty much on, most of the time.
Mm-hmm. And do you have any entrepreneurial role models?
Oh, I suppose, there's people like Richard Branson, of course, is an incredible visionary, and, nothing has really stopped him. And then I've also had the great fortune of spending time at Singularity University in Silicon Valley, and so I've met entrepreneurs like Ray Kurzweil and Peter Diamandis, who I've also had the great privilege of bringing to Australia to speak at the Creative Innovation Conference, which I curate. And I've met some incredible entrepreneurs through the Creative Innovation Conference as well. I guess, they're people who just don't see the barriers, who they're really changing the world. And I love people like that.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
Tania, can we go back to the time before you were an entrepreneur? Now, you alluded that you've been an entrepreneur since the age of 5, so I'm not quite sure where we're going to go with this. What difficulties did you have to overcome when you started your business?
Well, by the way, when I refer to age of 5, I used to do magic shows with my brother, and we charged our parents an admission fee to attend our shows. And then when I was about 10, I started a gemstone tumbling business, and I used to make shell jewellery and gemstone jewellery, and I literally had a little shell shop, jewellery shop outside the front gate of my parents' home in Glen Iris in Melbourne. And then I had a tennis coaching business, so I coached, tennis to just actually some of the wealthiest entrepreneurs' children in and around Melbourne. And then I had a singing teaching school. Mm-hmm. And then, of course, I started to set up my group Pot-Pourri, and then all of these other businesses that I mentioned earlier. I suppose the greatest difficulties that, I had was, well, firstly, I was told not to bother having singing lessons when I was 14 by one of my best girlfriends. And, that absolutely put me off. And if people watch my TED Talk, they can see a little more about that story. But, I really believed that I was not good enough. And then when I was 23, another singing teacher actually told me that I'd never make it past the chorus. And so, and really throughout all of the businesses that I've set up, there's always been the doubters and detractors around me. It sometimes is my own mum. As much as I love her, sometimes she'll say, oh, that's never going to work. But it's also a lot of other people who say, oh, this is starting at the wrong time, or it's never going to work, people have tried that before. The usual sort of comments that you get whenever you're trying to start something new. Mm-hmm. And, it's almost like people who are snatching your dreams. They don't mean to. They're actually trying to look after you, because I think that, you really truly are not going to succeed at that. But, I guess my advice is, if you really believe you can do something, just go out and do it and get a group. But I've always also got a group of people around me with all my enterprises that have become like ambassadors or advisory panels, groups of people that I can call on to advise me, to help pull me through difficult, troughs, valleys and dark spots, and also that can help open doors and help me connect to the right network so that I can actually achieve what I'm trying to achieve. But yeah, there's been heaps of difficulties all along the way. I mean, I could go through each of the businesses and tell you each one, but we don't have time for that. And let's focus on what makes it successful.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So you've been a portfolio entrepreneur forever then?
I guess so. I've got a big portfolio. Yeah.
Did you have any doubts that delayed you starting your business?
No. I've never had any doubts about, I actually never really wanted to work for anyone else.
Yeah.
So, there was really no question that I was going to be an entrepreneur. Actually, at one stage when I finished my law degree, I got offered articles at a law firm, and then I thought, no, I really, a great law firm and everything, but really I always wanted to create things from scratch and work for myself.
Mm-hmm. And what mistakes did you make that slowed your journey?
I think I've made, so many mistakes. I suppose some of the greatest mistakes that I've made is, not trusting other people enough to do what they're supposed to do. I think one of the traps of being an entrepreneur is that you try and do everything yourself, mm-hmm. and you have to learn how to tolerate and encourage other people to work with you and be tolerant of their mistakes and just lead them along with you. But when you're in you want to get things done quickly, you've got no money, it's hard to employ other people as well. So perhaps, I might have invested more money in getting more staff earlier on, and that might, maybe I wouldn't have got so tired. On the other hand, managing staff is always tricky. I mean, human beings, there's nothing stranger than human beings. And it's always difficult to know exactly who you're employing, what they've had in their own background in their life's journey that's going to make it more difficult for you to work with them. And I think also, when you work with an entrepreneur, you have to understand entrepreneurs, and a lot of people that you can employ have worked in larger organisations where there is a budget, there is a more defined structure. So working with an entrepreneur of its nature is there's a greater sense of urgency and often less structure, and some people find that difficult to deal with. So yeah, I mean, I've probably made mistakes around selecting sometimes the wrong people to work with me, sometimes not enough people to work with me. Plenty of mistakes around that sort of thing. And I guess, the other mistakes might be that, it's not a mistake really, but I really didn't intend to have this many ventures going at once. It's not the plan really.
Does it take you till now to figure that out?
No, not really. But it's sort of when you've got something and it's providing value to people, and people have now employ lots and lots of people. It's pretty hard to drop something, because I'm actually quite attached to all the different organisations, and they all have a lot to offer.
Yeah.
And a lot of them have great people working in them, and it's like, well, what would I drop?
Yeah.
Or and then it's or how would I reallocate it? But I am looking at some different sort of structures for some of my current portfolio, because it is getting overwhelmingly enormous.
Mm-hmm. What are some of the things that you did before you started your business that would be helpful tips to some of the listeners who haven't yet taken the first step on the entrepreneur way?
I studied. I did a law degree, which was very useful. So to learn the basics of law and contracts is, I think, extremely important. I wish that I'd done accounting. I was never interested in it, and I still don't love figures. But I do recommend that people really learn how to, understand finance, understand basic contracts at least, learn how to hire the right people and learn a lot about people. I spent a lot of time, I think, just learning how people tick. I'm very interested in psychology, and I also have done quite a lot of work on building my own intuitive skills so that, I can make better decisions, not only about the people I work with, but also just on the decisions that are going to make the business more successful.
Tania, what I'd like to do now is just talk about the entrepreneurial journey a little bit with you. So do you think culture is important from the beginning in a business?
Well, yes, I do, but it can be very difficult because, often entrepreneurs are on their own to begin with. So it's like, you're working, 24/7, and that's not particularly, for employees that are coming in, not all of them might want to do that. So, but yes, it is important, but I think it's pretty hard to often get the right culture at the beginning of a business unless, you have a lot of capital and that you can actually create a really good environment where people feel a greater sense of balance. It's also, I think, incredibly important too for people to feel like they can in some way have have a sense of ownership in the business from as early on as possible, not necessarily having to own shares, but feeling like they're in charge of certain projects, that they will get a bonus or other incentive if they, put some good deals on the table or get some things over the line, get some partners on board in different ways. So, yeah, I do think it's important, but I think it's tricky. Culture's the most difficult thing for any workplace, let alone, entrepreneurial organisations and small startups. It's incredibly difficult for large organisations to get their culture right.
You've got 7 or 8 things going on at once. I'm just intrigued to know, how on earth do you manage all of that? What is the secret to being able to do that?
Juggling, so being able to sort of switch, so I can be focused on one project and then I can switch to another one pretty quickly, and then I immediately focus on that one. So being incredibly focused in the moment at the time that I'm doing something, but then being able to switch quickly. So I see a lot of people, and I find this a challenge with, even some of the younger staff that I employ, is that they get very focused on a task, and if I ask them to do something else, quickly, it's like, oh no, but I want to finish this task first. And I say, well, you can go back to that. Let's just, do this one quickly. And so I think that, just being able to sort of have a number of different balls in the air at once is probably how I've managed to do that. And I guess that is, I am working hard and working long hours. And it's just by being very focused in whatever it is at the moment. But I could swap projects. I'm probably swapping projects. In some cases, it might be every 5 minutes or so. Sometimes, not always. I do also have concentrated periods where I am just focusing on one project for, an hour or two. Or generally, I wouldn't focus on one particular project for a long period of time at once. I mean, I will over a period of months, but it won't be that I'm just focused on one project for 6 months or something like that.
So you must have some good people working for you who make that possible. Yeah,
absolutely I do. No, I absolutely do. And in all the different businesses that I've set up, it's absolutely been important to find the right people to, for example, with the entertainment and events company, MTA, I really don't have a lot of day-to-day involvement in that business, for example. The charity which I set up 17 years ago, the Song Room, I have no involvement in that anymore. And, the CEO and the board of that organisation have been extremely effective in growing that organisation. And so it's great to see things that, I've started flying along. And actually, really, with my current charity, my goal also is to see it fly without my day-to-day involvement.
So I take it comes down to people and time management to some extent.
It does, but so we've just recruited a CEO for the second charity, for Creativity Australia. But it takes time to get, even if you've got a manual and a system, it takes time. You've got to take CEO to all the meetings you go to and show them the ropes and introduce them, and it's a big process. Because I think the businesses that I have set up are not your traditional businesses. I haven't set up an app or They're not simple charities either. They're solving complex social issues. So what we're doing is not always easy to put in one line. You know, the elevator pitches are not always straightforward. So you've got to sort of show people what you're doing. And once people experience, for example, the conference, or they experience coming to the With One Voice program, or they experience, you know, one of the keynotes or whatever, then they become like fans, and and then you start to build, you know, more clients, more followers.
Knowing what you know now, is there anything that if you'd known it when you started out would have helped you to shortcut the learning curve?
I'm not really sure, because I think that my feeling is you just have to go through the curve, and I'm one of these people that has to experience stuff to know it. Mm-hmm. And I'm not really sure that it's that easy to shortcut things. Now, you can be, you know, I've seen colleagues of mine who've created, you know, multi-billion-dollar, extremely successful businesses in much shorter time frame than I have, but they're not working in the social and creative space that I am. And I think that it depends what business you're in. So if you're in a more technology-based business, then, yeah, you should absolutely read you know, the stories of people who've been able to create those businesses very quickly. But I think in this kind of business, or the types of businesses and charities that I've set up, I'm not convinced that there's a shorter way of doing it. With the Song Room, it took a good probably 7 years or so before it was really in a position to become more sustainable, and I'm finding the same thing with the current charity. You know, we're sort of at a tipping point now at about 7 years. So I think it's tricky. I mean, with the businesses, the conference took off pretty quickly. The Creative Innovation Conference, even in the first year, was incredibly successful. So I think I created a formula that just worked, you know, and I suppose I did that from looking at other, you know, I'd been going to conferences, singing at them, speaking at them for probably 20 years by the time I set up that conference. So I knew what I wanted to do differently to begin with. So, yeah, doing your homework's important. I mean, seeing what else is in the marketplace and, you know, learning from those people's experiences is very valuable.
And how much does gut feeling influence your decisions in your business?
Oh, enormously. Yes. So, you know, I could pretty much completely rely on my intuition, and, you know, I don't make a lot of decisions based only on facts or some rational, you know, argument. I go with my heart. Well, I've made mistakes, but in general, I really value my intuition, and I also have some other people around me that also assist me in making the right decisions. So, yeah, huge.
Have you always been like that, or is that something you've done through experience?
No, I've pretty much always done that, yeah. I go from the heart. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Life is made of constant change, whether we like it or not, and many people say that the only constant in life is change. How do you try to keep up with change?
I keep up with change by reading a lot, you know, listening to a lot of podcasts like this one, and watching videos and TED Talks and all that type of thing. Last year I was fortunate enough to be invited to go to be part of the executive program at Singularity University. It will probably be one of the best ways of keeping up with change that I know of. So that's the leading university in the world for learning about exponential technologies. So in 6 days there, I probably got 3 years of, you know, that would have probably taken me 3 years or more just to learn what I learned in those 6 days, because I was just surrounded by people that were focused on the incredible effects of technology and disruption on our world. And I guess also the other way that I keep up with change is I actually curate one of the best innovation conferences in the world, and I bring each year to Australia 8 to 10 of the leading innovators, entrepreneurs, thinkers in the world. Mm-hmm. And in talking to and listening to those people, I've learned an enormous amount. about what is going to be coming over the next 5 years, and doesn't necessarily make me more capable of dealing with it, but I've got a pretty good idea of what I think the world's going to look like. Yeah. And I think, it's no surprise to anyone, we're experiencing the most massive disruption possible, and it's going to take an enormous amount to not only prepare for that, but to manage and optimise, the opportunities that could come from that, but also to deal with some of the risks around that.
Yeah. And what is your favourite book on entrepreneurialism, business, personal development, leadership or motivation? And can you tell us why you have chosen it?
Look, I love... there's lots of books that I really like, but, there's books like From Good to Great by Jim Collins that, really show you, how you can, completely step up to the next level. I love The Art of Possibility by Benjamin Zander, which uses an analogy of an orchestra and being in an orchestra to, teach you about leading and following and being part of a team and so on. Great book. I might also send you some others, Neil, when I think of some to add to your list.
Okay, that's good. Everyone, when you have a busy life, listening to audiobooks is a great way to expand your knowledge in the time when you may be doing other things, such as driving or when you are at the gym. We have a special offer for you of a free audiobook of your choosing. To choose your free audiobook, go to www.freeaudiobookoffer.com. As long as you've not already signed up, then you will qualify. Tania, what I'd like to do now with you is speculate a little bit about the future and some possibilities. What one thing would you do if your business is if you knew that you could not fail?
I think I'd probably do concerts in all the major concert halls around the world and just sing around the world to massive audiences and spread the message around changing the world one voice at a time, and how each person can find their meaning and purpose, and if we reach out to others that we can really create communities that care for one another and not have to deal with all the the repression and the war and poverty and hunger and other issues that we're facing in our world.
Could you apply that question to your charities?
I guess we would run our program in communities all over the place, and but what holds us back all the time is we just don't have the money to do this. So we have a lot of demand and a lot of need for our work in communities in Australia and all over the world. We've had inquiries for the With One Voice programs from literally all over the world since my TED talk. And what is holding pretty much everyone back from starting more With One Voice programs is just the costs around that. Not that they're that large, but, people have to fundraise to pay the conductors and, find venues, but usually they're donated and things. But, yeah, it's funny how money is generally the obstacle for anyone doing or starting anything. Well, it's not funny. It's actually just the way it is, I guess. Yes.
What skill, if you were excellent at it, would help you the most to double your business?
I think just, I think probably getting, more powerful, influential people to really endorse and back what we do, getting, even more well-known speakers to our conferences, getting incredible ambassadors for the With One Voice program. And I forgot to mention we have this incredible global initiative called Sing for Good, which is where 2 or more people sing together with a group, family, club, school, video a song of their choice and then put it up on YouTube and get friends and networks to vote for their entry and donate to support disadvantaged people. So this is an online video campaign we've started to change the world through song. And we'd have like people like, who knows, Lady Gaga, Kylie Minogue, Adele. being ambassadors for Sing for Good.
Yeah.
That would help. That would really help. That would not only double our business, I think it would, it wouldn't only double our business, it would also massively increase the amount of people who'd enter Sing for Good, raise funds for it, and it would massively increase the amount of people that could be helped through our programs.
Mm-hmm. In 5 years from now, if a well-known business publication was publishing an article on your business after talking to your customers and suppliers, what would you like it to say?
That we really have helped lots and lots of people to, number one, not be afraid of failure. Number two, not give up on their dreams. Number three, set up the companies and organisations that they truly know can change the world, and that we've enabled lots more people who are disadvantaged to feel a part of the community and make a contribution to our world.
We're now at the part of the show where you share 3 golden nuggets with us. So, Tania, what is your favourite quote and how have you applied it?
My favourite quote is, if I'm not for myself, who will be for me? And if I'm only for myself, what am I? And if not now, when? By Rabbi Hillel. How I've applied it. If I'm not for myself, who will be for me? So you have to actually make sure that you're going really well, because otherwise, you can't get enough supporters and you need to have people back you. If you're only for yourself, well, what's the point? So if you're not going to make a difference to other people in the community, why bother? And if not now, when is all about doing it now. So, of course, as I said to you earlier, I've always made a point of, if I've got an idea, I just start it and I don't wait. And the longer you wait, the more obstacles will be put in your way.
Do you have any favourite online resources that you can share with us?
I love LinkedIn. Absolutely fantastic. Great way to connect to people, build your network, learn what people do. I think the TED Talks, of course, are amazing. And look, of course, the Entrepreneur Way is a fantastic resource. You heard of that one?
Yeah, I think I have, come across it. Thank you. And what is your best advice to other entrepreneurs?
My best advice to other entrepreneurs is do it now. Don't give up. Be prepared to fail and fail fast and then try again. Connect with people who are really diverse from you in what I call positive human collision. So connect with people on a regular basis that are different from you, that don't have the same education backgrounds, don't wear the same clothes as you. Connect with people from different generations, different cultures, different faiths, different beliefs. Get out of your comfort zone, and that's where true innovation will occur. If you're going to set up an enterprise and you're going to do something that's going to create a lot of value, then make sure that you build in components of it that can really give back to the community, because we have a lot of social problems, a lot of people who are disadvantaged and being left behind, and with the increase in technology, there's going to be more and more people who will find it hard to get work and will be left behind. And so as the privilege of being an entrepreneur is that you can actually change the world, so change the world.
Everyone, if you didn't manage to get a note of Tania's favourite resource or her favourite book, you can find the links on Tania's show notes page. Just go to theentrepreneurway.com and search for Tania or Tania de Jong in the search box. Tania, is there anything else that you'd like to add about your business?
Look, I just encourage people to definitely watch and share my TED Talk, How Singing Together Changes the Brain. It's been viewed by nearly 30,000 people so far, and I'd love to see it get up to hundreds of thousands of views or millions. Mm-hmm. And that's all just about spreading the word. I encourage people to follow me on Twitter at Tania de Jong, TaniaDeJong, to check out our website, creativeuniverse.com.au, to come to the Creative Innovation Conference, to put in entries for Sing for Good, which opens in August this year, and to just contact me if there's any ways that people would like to collaborate, ask for advice. Just feel free to contact me, and I'm sure you'll provide the website and so on.
Yes, I will. Put it in the show notes. Tania, it's been an honour having you on the show. You've really shared some great content and some information and advice with us, and it's just amazing all the things you're doing. And so thank you for coming on the show and sharing everything with us.
Thank you for listening to The Entrepreneur Way. Subscribe to our podcast and follow us on Twitter @Neil D. Ball.